Hi, this is Carrie Brownstein.
This is DJ Premier.
This is Darren Aronofsky.
You got the RZA right here.
Rose McGowan.
Radiohead.
Aisha Tyler.
Tribe Called Quest.
Fred Armisen.
Fritz Paul.
Javier Munoz. Seth Meyers.
Frankie Cosmos.
Flying Lotus.
Hi, we're Chaim, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Talkhouse Podcast. I'm Josh Modell. Today we've got one of those episodes pairing an artist you've surely heard of, pun intended, with one you likely haven't, but you will. It's Shirley Manson and Stephen McAll. Now Manson is of course the singer for the long-running, Grammy-nominated, chart-topping, Bond-theme performing band Garbage, which hit it big right out of the gate in the mid-1990s. Manson and her bandmates have assembled a varied catalog since, including the biting 2021 album No Gods, No Masters. As you'll hear in this chat, Garbage is still going strong, working on a new record that goes in apparently a different direction than the last one. Manson has always been a great talker. She even hosted her own podcast for a few years called The Jump, on which she talked with other musicians about the song that provided their breakthrough. It's really awesome. She's a huge fan of music, obviously, so it's no surprise that she was excited to chat with today's other guest, Stephen McAll. Now, McAll, like Manson, is Scottish. It's hard to miss in their voices, though he hasn't been making music nearly as long. His debut album under the name Constant Follower came out in 2021 and was met with loads of critical acclaim in Scotland for his quiet, heartfelt, frequently intense songs. Think Bon Iver or Low or even McCall's favorite, Talk Talk. This week sees the release of the second proper Constant Follower album called The Smile You Send Out Returns to You, another intense set that covers some of McCall's personal journey, including addiction, fatherhood, and the violent attack he suffered 2 decades ago that still affects his memory. Check out a little bit of the song Almost Time to Go from The Smile You Send Out right here.
So hold on. Try to just hold on. It's almost time to move on.
In this lively but deep conversation, Manson and McAll talk about that awful attack and how it led eventually to Constant Follower. They also talk about longevity in the music business, the creative process, including The Artist's Way, a book that's become a frequent topic in Talkhouse chats, and lots more, including the time that Rivers Cuomo laughed in Manson's face, in a helpful way. Enjoy.
Hello, Shirley.
Hello, Stephen McAll.
Thank you so much for coming and chatting with me.
I am
in this lovely venue.
I'm delighted to be here.
We're sitting in Crescent House in Edinburgh, which is a beautiful big kind of Georgian townhouse manor with amazing art all over the walls, and it's a beautiful room to sit in for a chat.
Yeah, it is. It's very posh.
Yeah.
It's lovely to be back in Edinburgh as well.
How often do you manage to get back?
It depends really what's going on. Sometimes a lot, sometimes not very much. I've had a bit of a tough year. And so I was supposed to come back in the summertime for a long time, and I messed up my hip and I had to go home because I couldn't walk. So I've not been in Edinburgh since Christmas of last year. So
right, okay.
I'm thrilled to be back.
And how's the hip? Is it?
The hip is tip-top.
Tippy-top, right?
Tip-top, yeah.
Fantastic.
I had the surgery about 7 weeks ago, and so I can walk and, life begins again.
My mum, in a different position though, she got both of hers done, arthritis-y thing, and she became a new person. It's amazing, you know.
I've had both of them done too, to be honest.
Did you get both of them done, right? Okay.
Not at the same time, but I had one last year as well, so I'm a hot mess. And of course, which brings us neatly to your gorgeous new single, Patient His Own Supply, was on a lot in my house.
Right, okay.
As I recuperated and was lying on my bed, feeling broken.
Wow.
And I thought a lot about you, actually. I don't want that to sound too creepy. But obviously, it sounds a wee bit creepy.
Well.
But I was thinking about you because I know you've been through a lot in your life and you live with a disability, essentially, you know. And I wondered if you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, sure. I like to be completely open about it all, you know. I sort of had this thought that if I say it in one interview, then I should say it in all interviews and just like, speak about it, maybe it helps someone kind of thing, you know. Because I remember when I was going through all of that, there was no resources, you know, there was no internet, there was no friends of mine that had been through similar things, there was no adults guiding me. So I was completely adrift.
How old were you?
Well, should I tell the story?
I think you should tell the whole story.
All right. So I was 17. and I was a wee budding musician. I was probably about to record my first album, had some songs and all that sort of stuff. I was walking home from my girlfriend's house one night in East Kilbride, minding my own business, and I got jumped by a gang of like 10, 20-year-olds and up kind of thing, and they knocked me out, and then they were taking turns jumping off a wall onto my head. And it was only stopped because some girls that kind of half knew me walked past and seen what was happening and pulled them away, and they ran off. Anyway, they took me to my house, which was about 50 yards away or something, and my dad opened the door and he said, "That's not my son." He didn't, already my head was so swollen that they didn't recognise me. So yeah, into hospital, like really bad injuries, you know. I was in hospital for a while.
Oh my God.
And recovered sort of enough to go home, and couldn't remember anything about what had happened or anything like that, you know, and the police were coming to see me. But after a long while, I realised that all of my childhood memories were gone. I realised that all of the memories up until that point had actually just completely disappeared, like they were completely wiped. And it was at that point that I really felt adrift, you know, because it's sort of like, you know, what do people say to you when you first meet? "Oh, what's your story?" It's kind of like, not in those words, but that's what people want to know.
You mean as an artist?
I know, I mean, as a person, you know, like, what's your story so far in your life? What's happened? What have you done? And actually, that's what gives you context, you know, as a person. That's what makes you who you are. So when that's gone, you're a man adrift, you're a woman adrift, you know. And
could you remember anything at all? I mean, you talk about your childhood memories and you're very specific about feeling that you lost them entirely.
yeah.
Have they ever come back?
So they were gone completely. Not
how
a
long?
single memory I could remember until, well, when I was in about 5 years ago or so, I started treatment for PTSD, right? And I started doing this thing called EMDR. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I
Eye
have.
movement desensitization, something, where there's you like following a light from side to side on a bar and remembering and sort of going through what might have happened in your memory. Normally, when you go to bed at night, you go through REM sleep, and that sort of processes the memories of the day away and like puts them away in drawers. But when you have a traumatic event, what happens is your brain keeps it at the front, you know, the front, so is that sort of saying, yeah, there was a tiger there last time, don't go there again, you know, like, so it keeps it really fresh and doesn't put it away.
For survival reasons.
For survival reasons, for protect you, you know. So some clever cookie came up with the idea that why don't we mimic REM sleep while we're going through the memory and see if that works. And actually it is now one of the most successful treatments for PTSD.
Wow.
So we started doing it, and she said, "What's the earliest you remember something happening that was kind of traumatic?" And I sort of have these memories of memories, right? Where I remember that something happened at school, but I don't remember any of the detail, and I don't remember what happened. So I was saying, well, something happened in the playground at school on the grass. And she said, right, we started looking at the light going backwards and forwards, right? And then suddenly I started getting this really strong smell in my nose of cut grass, right? And then I started seeing the grass that I was standing on. And then I started seeing the children that I was at school with, their faces exactly perfectly, right?
Oh my God.
The uniforms as they were. And this memory is just the most vivid memory I've ever had in my life, just came back fully formed in my, right? And then I remembered this guy, I won't say his name, coming up to me and threatening me and pushing me, and it was all happening like in real time, and I was remembering every detail, right? And I was sort of trying to communicate it with the therapist as well, where we were doing it, but anyway, we kept looking at it, and after a while it started to fade, right? I said, "It's fading." And she said, "No, that's good, that's it being processed." Cloudy, right? It got cloudier and cloudier and cloudier until I could hardly make anything out, and then it disappeared, and I burst into tears.
Wow.
Because it was like the first memory I've had in all those years, so clear, so vivid, and then it was there and then it was gone because it was like processed away. But anyway, we went through that with all of these traumatic events, stabbings and all of that, and basically cleared most of my trauma using the EMDR.
And so did that therapy process patch together a landscape of memory, or are you just saying you processed each individual memory every time you went to therapy?
Each individual one. So we'd go in, I was going for a long time, we'd go in and say, okay, we knew this happened. Say, for example, the night that I get stabbed in the back of the head with a bottle, right? A broken bottle. We would go through.
I'm sorry to laugh. I mean, you've had quite a life already, but by the time you're 17.
Totally. This is East Kilbride. It's absolutely mental. It was a war zone. The problem with East Kilbride was that it was a new town, so they're moving people out of the Glasgow slums. They put incentives for young families to move there. So it was amazing with all these children until they all turned into teenagers and went mental, you know?
Yeah, it's quite
time.
rough. Yeah.
But we would process each one of those memories, and each time something pretty magical would happen, I thought, you know? And actually, I got better at doing it as well. So by the end, we could process traumatic memories very, very quickly. You know?
That is one of the wildest things I've ever heard.
It's crazy.
And so after your initial accident at 17, when you say you had no childhood memories, did you have memories at all? Like, did you recognise your parents?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. I functioned completely normally. I couldn't do school anymore. That was something. So that was as if a lot of the learning that I learned at school wasn't there anymore.
But could you still read and write? And
I could, right. So I couldn't read. What I could... That's a kind of another interesting point, because so I couldn't read books. By the time I got halfway down a page, I've forgotten what was at the top of the page, you know. And it took me years and years where I just didn't touch anything because I thought, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. I dropped out of school and basically self-medicated, you know, for a while. But then I had this amazing teacher at my school called Mrs. Tartakovsky, right? She was this tall, beautiful, dark-haired, amazing, strong woman, right? And she snuck me books before any of this happened. And she snuck me some Norman McAll poetry books, some
amazing.
Isaac Asimov, some Kurt Vonnegut, right? Take them home. I said, I'll bring them back. No, just keep them, right? So one day I came across the Norman McAll poetry books, right?
My heart.
I started reading it, and I realised, you know, Norman McAll, each line is a world, you know, and I realised, like, I was getting so much, I'd learn each line by line until I could read the whole poem and really understand the whole poem as a one. And I did that with pretty much all of his poetry. I just went into bookshops and got all of his poems, everything that he's ever written. And I kind of learned to read. I could, you know what I mean? I learned to actually take in information that way. And that's where the first songs started to develop. You know, after reading all that, I started to come up with a couple of wee lines. Probably if you went back to the Norman McAll, you might find those lines in amongst that somewhere.
Plagiarism.
You know? It might be. It feels like that, you know?
So moving forward from that horrific, horrendous experience, and I that must be something just, I can't even actually comprehend how traumatizing that must be. But if it led you to your work, I suppose ultimately it's been beautiful.
Yeah.
But can you form like memories moving forward? Was it just one part of your brain that got hurt?
Yeah, so I could sort of form memories. It's really weird. It's very selective, but not on purpose, you know? So some stuff I just, like Evan's going on holiday tomorrow. Evan, my friend and manager, he's going on holiday tomorrow to Cyprus, and he's talked about it loads to me. And this morning I met his wife, Audrey, and she said, oh yeah, we're going to Cyprus tomorrow. And to me it was new. I was like, oh wow, Cyprus, oh wow. And Evan's like, we've talked about this loads.
Fascinating.
So like just some stuff just doesn't get written down, you know?
And do you know what part of your brain has been affected?
No. My skull was all crushed on the left-hand side, but really the aftercare was non-existent.
Yeah.
Much, you know, and after I had the head injury, I actually had this about a year of post-head injury psychosis where I just completely believed that the world existed only for me and that only in my sight existed. And as soon as I turned away, that sort of stopped existing. And I would like test it. So I remember one time I was on a bus coming home from school. Up the top of the bus, everyone was smoking, of course. And I just stood up and I went, nothing is real. And no one turned round. No one turned round. So I was like, yeah.
They just ignored you.
Yeah. Because obviously I thought, who's this nutter? But at the time that sort of validated to me that, oh yeah, look, it's not even real. They're just characters.
So do you have a lack of confidence in your brain, or have you just accepted that your brain works differently from a lot of people, and you apply that difference to your work. Like, where do you get the confidence to be an artist? Because you do need a little bit of confidence, right?
Yeah. At first, I had absolutely zero confidence, and I had real terrible imposter syndrome for years, until the album started getting Scottish Album of the Year recognition and stuff
Now there's
like
a flex.
But, you know what I mean? That's like someone saying,
Validated you.
You've done all right. This is good enough, kind of thing.
This work isn't weird, or it doesn't seem impaired, right?
Yeah. So that sort of made me think, all right, okay, well, I can do this. And I realised that with music, the way that I produce, it's very my way, right? I work around my brain, I don't know what I'm playing with music. I don't know any of the notes, and I can't learn it. I've tried. So everything that I'm doing is all just sort of trial and error.
Incredible.
When I'm playing live, if I lose my place during a song, I pretty much need to start again because I don't know where it is. It's all it's finger memory or something. But when I'm producing, what I'll do is I'll put down the guitar and me, and then I'll bring the musicians in one by one, and I'll play it to them for the first time. They've never heard it before, and they'll just sort of react. And I think seeing this first few takes, when they're kind of fumbling and missing stuff, I think that's where the magic is for me, So they'll do that, and then maybe 10 takes, then they'll go away home, and then I'll just take them, all the things that make me feel something in my heart, I'll take them all out and make one or two guitar tracks from it.
And how does your memory work with your music production? So are you able to keep track of everything? Like, 10 tracks of let's say a guitar. Yeah. Are you able to remember, that was track 3 that I really loved? Or do you just go back and listen to each track again and grab them in the moment?
I need to grab everything in the moment, yeah. It's all very much in the moment, and it's all very much just this little sphere of now, So
I'd imagine that handicap that you have, that you've spoken about earlier, is in fact an advantage in some ways when you put your music together, because it's so almost... Jazz is the wrong word because that's applies to something, a different practice, but you're absolutely forced to be in the moment, which is magic, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of magic in the moment.
Yeah, it is. And it's all in the moment.
It is. I couldn't really even imagine if I was able. I couldn't imagine working a different way. The thing that I notice with my musicians is that my musicians, the bandmates, my musicians. The thing that I notice is that, the more they try and get to something, right, the more they push it, sort of the better it becomes, but the flatter
it gets flatter.
And so just staying as far away from that as possible, which I have to do anyway, it seems to work. And the songs are all written kind of stream of consciousness sort of thing, I'm not like trying to write a song about this thing. But when I go out into the studio afterwards, making the music, I really am thinking about a time that something happened, and I'm sort of recreating that feeling in that song. And so all the music is recreating a feeling, whereas the words are stream of consciousness, and there's something about that just kind of works. Yeah,
I feel that when I listen to your music. There's something very intangible about it, that it doesn't sound studied in any way, and there's a lot of atmosphere and feeling in it, which I personally, I'm crazy about. So when you say that the words are stream of consciousness, are you saying that you don't review what you've written? Are you writing on a guitar and then stream of consciousness vocals, and then you don't review the vocals?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm just sort of, I sit down with the guitar, and I've got a book that I write wee lines in and stuff like that, that they come to me. And I'll just sit down and I'll just sort of like take a line and start, and then I'll just, and another line will come, write that down, and another line will come, and it just comes out like that. And afterwards I'll like read it, and if it's total nonsense, I'll change some stuff and all that, but it pretty much stays as it comes out, pretty much, And then this is the cool thing about it, because at first I won't know what it means, probably, because it will just be kind of a bit abstract or something. And I remember this one time, it was like months after the record came out, on the first record, there's this song called Spirits in the Roof Tree. And I'm driving along, and that came on the radio, and it just hit me what it meant, like I was like, oh my God, that was about,
Oh, that's incredible. I love that.
And I just was crying, because I think that's, I'm sort of somehow letting my feelings come out in the songs, and I'm not quite knowing at the moment what they're about, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think that's...
How do you do it?
It's funny because I was thinking about this quite recently, and just because we have just finished a record which will come out in 2025.
Great.
And this will be our 8th record, my 8th record with Garbage. But of course, I was in a band before that. I've been playing music since I was 15. Yeah. I'm now 58 years old. Next year, I'll be 59. And I feel like I am, still on a massive learning curve. And our last record was very explicit. Like, I had things that I really wanted to say, and I'm a very plain-spoken person. Yeah. And that, I feel, is just what you hear on that record. On No Gods, No Masters, it's just very me, like very blunt.
Right.
And coming into this next record, because the world was so fraught when we were working on it, yeah. I was like, there's no place for your bluntness, which is strange because a lot of my friends who are musicians have become more determined than ever to be more political, more aggressive, more confrontational. And having been that way on my last record, I was like, there's no place for that coming from you right now. Like, I didn't even want it in myself, if that makes any sense. I wanted to tamp in the sort of rageful side of myself, the outraged side of myself, and find something more beautiful for myself in order to basically survive, Totally. And so I noticed that has changed my writing, incredibly so, and the first Garbage record, everybody whitters on about, that's their only good record, but for me personally, I'm like, it was an amazing record and I love it dearly and I'm really proud of it. But my writing's like chalk and cheese now. Yeah. Now, a lot of the fans resent that. Like they just want you to go back and do the first record you've ever done over and over and over again. And some bands and some amazing artists can do that. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I've traversed, a long way from there. And I just want to keep learning and keep exploring. And I want to get to the point when I'm like you. Like, I want to have the balls to sort of just let my subconscious create the mood, not the story, not the message, not the idea, but just the mood. And I haven't even got there. I feel like I'm a novice, I feel like you're one of these amazing artists who are lucky enough to be what I call born whole. Right. Like, you start out and you're already almost there entirely. Wow. And the springboard from that, God only knows where you can go from here. But I'm not that kind of artist, and I've never been that kind of artist. And it's probably one of the reasons why I'm so attracted to your music, is because you've got something that I don't have and I want it. Wow. And one day it will be mine.
Oh my goodness. Oh wow. That's so funny.
I mean, you've got to keep dreaming, right? You've got to keep... Yeah. I mean, I think it's important as an artist to keep pushing yourself. Yeah. I mean, you could just do the same thing and be safe and be popular, or be too scared to try and change. Like, oh, people love this. Yeah. I'm not going to deviate from this. Whereas I'm more like, my life is short, life is ticking. I want to try different things and find where I feel most at home as an artist. I keep thinking about you and I having a brief email exchange, and you were in the middle of sequencing this new record. Mm-hmm.
That's right, yeah.
And you were like, give me your thoughts on how you, what you think. And I was thinking that would be so inappropriate for me in any way, shape or form. And I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but I was thinking, when you sequence a record, which is something I don't hear artists talk about. So the very fact that you mentioned the sequencing of your record to me, I just fell madly in love with you. I was like, this is so cool. Because it made me realise that this was an artist I was talking to who really understood the idea of, which is ironic, bearing in mind what you've just been saying, but sort of a narrative of a record, which I think in the current music climate has become something that people forget about. They put out hit singles, and there's never any cohesive, looking of the piece. Totally. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share what you said. I absolutely loved what you said. You said you're not going to get involved, basically, because it's not your place. But you also said just the first side should finish in a way that you want to play the second side. And that's so simple, right? I don't think people think about that when they're sequencing records. They think about, I can tell a story. But actually, yeah, you tell the story, but also you've got to, build this excitement. It's got to be a book, It's got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Each side does. So that really informed how I did it in the end, actually. That one wee thing.
That makes me feel so proud.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a very precious thing, is this, to me, it's like such a intimate thing with your music to sequence something.
Yeah.
But how you're going to present it.
Yeah. I always knew what the first song would be, which was interesting. Even though it hadn't been written, I didn't write the first song until everything else was recorded. And the first song is the same as the title of the album, The Smile You Send Out Returns to You, right? This is something that my dad used to say to me when I was wee. And see what you're saying about all of this shit that's going on in the world, right? And how your sort of body rebelled against it by actually wanting to self-soothe and wanting to put a message out into the world of love, maybe.
Yes.
Well, this is exactly what is going on with me with this album, I wanted to shout and scream and stamp and rip things down, but actually that just made me feel bad, thinking about that and thinking that way. I just thought, God, the smile you send out returns to you. Never was there a time more where we need to interact with other people like this, We forget that other people are other people. We forget they're people, especially if they're on the end of a television. So that's kind of, the whole message of the album for me is just one of sort of healing, one of hope, one of peace, Even though the songs might not sound like that, some of them sound very personal, like Patient as on Supply, But intentionally in that, even though it's such a strong story of a negative story, which I can expand on a bit if you want, but even though
I think you should expand on it.
Well, Patient As On Supply is
sublime.
Yeah, it's got a brilliant ending, hasn't it?
It has.
With it. Oh, it's beautiful. That's the only song that's actually written about a thing, really.
What do you mean by a thing? What does that mean?
An experience. It's like an experience. So shortly after I had sort of recovered enough from being badly attacked the first time, I was taking a lot of drugs, and my parents were away on holiday, and I just bought a load of amphetamine, and I was sitting in my bedroom cutting it into smaller packages for myself, a wee line for me, a wee package away, and I woke up with my face in the amphetamine.
Oh my God.
And my heart going and then nothing for ages, and then like that.
Oh my God.
Much pain in my chest that I sort of hobbled down to the bathroom and looked in the mirror, and the speed was running out my eyes. This yellow was all over my face.
Oh my God,
all
this is so extreme.
I know, it was terrible. So I hopped in my mum's car that I wasn't insured for or anything. I didn't have my licence yet. And I drove myself to Hare Myers Hospital, which in the song is drove yourself to the mire. And I parked the car in the ambulance bay and sort of ran in and said, I'm dying, and told them what had happened. And immediately from that point, they started treating me badly, right? They ignored me. They threatened me.
Nice.
They put me in a ward with loads of other men, right? The intake ward, whatever it was. And they pulled a curtain around my bed so that I couldn't talk to anyone. And even while I was attached to the heart stuff and all that, and they were making sure that it didn't stop, my heart never stopped, but it was going all over the place for hours. They just were so sort of cold to me, and I needed love. I was a lost boy who'd just been through all that terrible trauma, and now this was more trauma. My parents were on holiday. My girlfriend had just broken up with me. I was like completely alone. And anyway, I was in hospital for about a week while I was recovering because it really damaged my heart, weakened my heart. And when they released me, they give you a bit of paper that's your discharge letter. Mm. Under medication in the discharge letter, the doctor had written in red pen, patient at his own supply, as if I'd got my own medicine, And the last thing he said to me, he winked at me and he said, see you again soon.
Oh, that's so horrible.
Isn't it? As if I'm a junkie, so I'll be back in kind of thing, So, yeah, it was quite
So you turned something ghastly into something really beautiful.
Well, maybe. I don't know. It's funny if it's beautiful. For me, the ending's beautiful,
Yeah.
But see the NHS we've got here, right? It's absolutely brilliant. And I know so many people that work for the NHS, and it's great, right? But there's people working for them, there's people, and people make bad decisions, and maybe those doctors were trying to give me tough love. So that's kind of out of that sadness, though. Patient Has On Supply comes, and when I listen to it, it makes me feel better. It's
Yeah.
like my medicine, you know.
It was my medicine too, so during my rehab. So where is this record in your discography, your new record? Where does it sit? Like, this is your second as Constant Follower?
Second proper album as Constant Follower. In between them, I released this collaboration with a Scottish guitarist called Scott William Urquhart, who I say is probably our greatest living guitarist.
Ooh, them's fighting words.
I know, but I keep saying that, and little newspapers start printing it.
Sowing the seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is your second record, though,
This
of Constant Follower.
Of Constant Follower, The Smile You Send Out Returns to You is the second album of Constant Follower, and then I've got that collaborative album that has the Norman McAll pieces on it and stuff like that.
Beautiful. And there was so much adulation of that first record. And I hate asking you this question because I feel I've been asked it literally for 30 years.
Yeah.
But did you feel a pressure making this second record proper? Did you feel like you were competing with yourself? And was that helpful or was it a hindrance?
That's such an interesting question. I thought about it afterwards. I didn't feel like I was competing with myself at all. For me, the only important thing is to be honest and true. And so I'm always just following the song and being honest and true. For me, I think it's almost like the songs are already written anyway. So like all I'm doing is driving down a country road at night, a dark country road, and you can see where you're going, you know, but you don't know what the destination is. And there's darkness all around. For me, that's what it's a bit like, you know. So
no fear.
no fear, just doing the work.
Good.
And
Excellent.
it's coming out somehow.
Yeah.
But it's worrying because then what if it stops coming out? What if I sit down and it doesn't?
I do not believe in the idea of writer's block per se.
Right.
Because I thought I had writer's block for a long time. And I actually sat down with Rivers Cuomo from Weezer, who he was asking me some questions about what I was doing musically at this particular point in my career. And I said, I have got really bad writer's block. And he laughed in my face, which I love him for. And he said, you're being utterly ridiculous. You know that, right? And I said, well, no, this is a real thing. I'm really freaked out about it. Yeah. And he said, look, you're the most opinionated social person I know. You have stuff to say all the time. And it sort of stopped me in my tracks a bit. And he said, you just start with one thing you want to say. Just sit down and start with one thing that you would say to a person if they walked in the room. Right. And after that, I was never blocked ever again. Okay. So I share that simply because whoever might be listening who makes music for a living, it might be helpful to. It just absolutely changed the way I wrote.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Did you ever have that fear? Or like you mentioned you fear it might go away? Like, yeah. It won't go away now. No. McAll, you've got it.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I remember my friend Gareth Dixon, right? He's a beautiful musician as well. He's making such lovely guitar stuff, ambient stuff as well. He was going out with Juana Molina. Do you know who that is? Mm-hmm. Right? And I remember him, he told me the story once of, he was over in Argentina or wherever it was that Juana was, living with her. And she was having this breakdown because I don't know how to write another song. I'll never write another song. I can't. And then the next week she had finished that Seguro album or whatever it's called, or her absolute masterwork, you know. It just came. And after that, hearing that story, I think that really kind of made me not worry too much about it. About having writer's block or about it going away. It comes in waves, doesn't it? It's just like everything else. Whenever I sit down, something good happens. Even if it's just a few lines, it may not be a song, but something good will happen, you know? And I read that, have you read that book, The War of Art?
No, I haven't. I haven't even heard of it, to be honest.
Right, The War of Art. I can't remember the name of the author, but the idea of the book is there's no such thing as writer's block. You make yourself available. You just do the work, basically. Like
do the work.
I can't remember who it was that says it. My inspiration comes at 9 a.m. when I sit down at my desk and take my pen in my hand, you know. It's like, it's always there. You just need to turn up and do the work. And for me, it feels like that in the studio, you know. It feels like just arrive.
Have you read The Artist's Way?
Yes, I did my morning pages.
Hey, let's talk about the morning pages, because I find that really helpful as well.
Oh my God, that's so helpful. That's helpful with writing emails. It's helpful with everything.
You do that still to this day? Every single day?
Every
For how
single
long have you
morning.
been doing this?
Whoa. Maybe 5 years, 7 years.
You must have you must have incredible discipline, right? You're a disciplined person.
I am not. Well, I guess I am. Do you know what? I guess I probably...
Okay, so what's the answer? Is it yes or no? Because you've just given me two conflicting answers entirely.
That's like down the middle. Yeah. In some ways, I definitely am, you know. Like, see stuff that really helps me. Like the morning pages, it's
Talk about
miraculous.
that. Talk about that.
So the
because I
morning-
think, that, again, any artists that are listening to this, young artists, even Isla, your daughter,
totally.
could hear this. It's such a great thing.
It's such a great thing. My goodness. It's the book's called The Artist's Way, and I terribly forget the author's name, but she's got these different sort of like processes that you can do that will help you with tools with writer's block or with any of these sorts of things. And there's this one called the morning pages, and the idea is as soon as you get up, you can grab your coffee, but as soon as you get up, you sit down with a pen and a bit of paper and you just fill the paper. And it doesn't matter what you're writing. Sometimes I've written a whole page of I don't know what to write.
Same. Brilliant.
You know? It doesn't matter what you write, but you get it out with the intention of never reading it again. You know, you can if you want, but the point is just writing. And sometimes some magic comes in there. Sometimes I'll get a song in there. Sometimes I'll work through things in my like mental health that, you know, that's been a block, that's something about some person or something like that. And I'll be like, oh my goodness, or something to do with one of my children, you know. But what it does is somehow it just enhances your actual writing. It makes sitting down to write a song so much easier somehow. I don't know exactly how it works. Even sitting down to write an email is so much easier. Sitting down to write any sort of bit of writing, it just flows so much better.
Yeah, it's incredible. I've suggested this to so many young artists who, and I understand this, by the way, I'm not knocking them.
Yeah.
But when I say, oh, there's this book called The Artist's Way, and they have the same response to it as I did, which was, fuck off.
Yeah.
I don't want anything to do with that. But then I actually ended up getting forced into doing it by an artist friend, and I had the same like epiphany. It was just extraordinary. So that amuses me that you do that. But to go back to my original question about your discipline, and you said, oh, I'm not a disciplined person. Oh, I really am a disciplined person. Why did you say you were not a disciplined person? Because clearly you are, because even the fact that you have put The Artist's Way into practice, that's discipline. So tell me about your lack of discipline.
Well, okay. I struggle with addiction, you know, like
Still.
I'm 400 days sober.
Congratulations,
400
that's
days sober.
incredible.
And that took discipline.
Yeah, I'll bet.
But at the same time, I have gained so much weight from eating sweeties every day. I've replaced my drink with sweeties. So that's kind of like disciplined, undisciplined, you know, right
I
there.
see.
You know what I mean? And with the stuff to do with the art, you know, I want to do this. I want to do it well. I feel like it's a gift, and I feel like maybe it's fleeting, you know, and I want to do the best that I can with it. What's the point in me doing it half-assed or something like that? So if there's bits of work that I need to do, like The Artist's Way, which definitely makes it better, you know, or a bit of guitar practice, whatever it is, I do that, you know. And I try to be extremely disciplined with my children, just in myself, you know. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
Yeah.
I try to be predictable and...
You're honourable.
No, I don't know what that noise was that I made there.
Yeah, you gave a sort of like, I'm not quite sure what that was either. It sounded like a cow mooing.
I don't know, what was that?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean...
You're an honourable person. I can tell from your writing you're honourable. Just
Well.
because you may struggle with an addiction or two. Sweeties.
Sweeties.
You know, doesn't make you dishonourable,
Yeah.
you know?
I try to behave in a way that if anyone sees me, that it's not something I would regret. I try and be kind.
Yeah, which is really of vital importance right now.
Yeah.
So where do you want to go from here as an artist, thinking about the future and your forward momentum? Like,
Okay.
is the record come out yet?
Record's out on the 28th of February.
Yes.
There's one more single to come, which is a really beautiful...
Even more beautiful than the previous ones. I find that hard
do you
to
know,
believe.
In a way, for me, it is, because it's got this German Oh, there's this guy called Andy Aquarius, right? You would love his music. You must check out his harp music, right? But it's harp at the core, but it's got loads of other stuff going on, and he's singing in his beautiful voice. I toured with him, and he's like this soul that I fell in love with, you know, that I really like get a lot from. Just even the way he lives his life and everything. He's a great guy. But he's on this playing harp, so
Gorgeous.
it's sort of like this for me. I can listen to it forever, and it's just beautiful.
Oh my God.
So that's coming out, and then the album proper comes out on the 20th of February with the lead single, The Smile We Send Out Returns to You, and which is my favourite track
Which
on
is
the
the
album.
beginning of it all.
The beginning of it all.
And are you excited?
I'm so excited.
Are you?
I am. I'm genuinely like, so because we've sent it to some magazines and stuff for early reviews, and the reviews that have come back have been absolutely incredible.
Well, the reviews, let's talk about the reviews, because that's insane, right?
Yeah.
The reviews you've received thus far on the songs that have come out
Yeah.
already have been ridiculously good.
Yeah.
That must be thrilling.
It's really, thrilling.
Even though they're all cunts and they don't know what they're talking about sometimes.
Well, I know
when they
if
say nice
say
things
something
about
negative.
you.
Totally. But that's the thing, like, I sort of get this feeling that I don't want to read the bad stuff, but I also shouldn't read the good stuff, you know, because
Correct.
perhaps the good stuff is going to cloud me or, you know, make my head too big or something
it's
like
fun
that.
to read the good
Oh,
stuff.
God, it's amazing. And it's total validation, you know, again. So if I'm reading, especially if it's from someone like Folk Radio, who I love Folk Radio Cloth now, they're called Cloth. I really love them, you know, I read them, and loads of the music that I consume, listen to, comes from them, you know. So if they're writing so beautifully about something that I've done, I'm trusting that, because I've read hundreds of reviews that they've written and then bought the albums and loved the albums. You never know, you know this, right? You never know how well your album's going to be received. You don't know what songs are the big songs. You don't know if it's going to even be received at all, you know. Some albums that are amazing just have disappeared.
Of course. I mean, it's no mark of success is no mark of whether something's good or bad or not.
It isn't.
In my humble opinion at this point. I'm like, I realise there's, like you say, there's so many artists who get completely ignored, who make great work and they can't get a hiccup, you know.
Totally.
And then similarly, there's been, you know, work that is lauded and applauded mindlessly. And I use that word
absolutely.
deliberately, that become phenomenons in our culture that aren't particularly good. So
totally.
I think as long as you can keep a healthy, like enjoy the good reviews because you worked for it and you deserve it.
Yeah.
But don't get hung up too much on whether, you know, it flies or it doesn't fly. Ultimately, you know, you have to think forward as an artist. I've also watched a lot of artists. Like my favourite sort of study is, of course, Nick Cave. I don't know if you're a fan or not a fan.
Yes.
But when I grew up, he was one of my main touchstones.
Okay.
And he was totally like subculture, you know, like he couldn't have been more sort of punk, really, if he tried. And to watch him and his career grow on his own terms to the point where, and it blows my mind, he's playing massive stadiums all over the world. Nick fucking Cave. Like, it blows my mind. He's never made any concession, really, to popularism. And the idea that if I had been told when I was 15 years old that Nick Cave was going to become a stadium artist, I would have laughed. It would have seemed like an impossibility to me. So I think about him a lot when things don't go well. Do you know what I mean? I think, you know, he just did his thing quietly for years and years and years. And now he's in his 60s. And finally, the dream is coming true, in inverted commas, for his work. And I just think that's astounding.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and really inspiring.
Yeah.
That because I didn't really understand that, you know, with Garbage when we first came out, we had such a huge, we were a zeitgeist, you know, we hit cultural saturation almost immediately, and it was really crazy. And then it's been very difficult to sort of accept that each record, some are more successful than others, but will never be that moment again. And so it's been a struggle for me emotionally, but I've sort of rid myself now of all that. I realise the work is the work, and you just build the work, and the work will sustain you for decades. If you just do, like you said earlier on, you do the work, you do the work, you build the work, you build the work, and it's always there for you. Mm-hmm. And I find that always such a lovely feeling for me now. Again, in my 4th decade of making music, I had it so wrong when I was young.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, I go back to this idea of you as an artist who seems to be so whole. and very wise, really, about your work. And I think it's going to serve you really well as you move forward, you know.
It's going to take me a while to process all these lovely things you've said about me.
I thought you were going to say something else there. I'm not saying it to be cute. I'm saying it because I really mean it.
Well,
and
I feel it from you.
Yeah.
I really do. And the things you've said to me privately as well, you know, it's like, I really feel the connection. And, do you know, this is, for me, feels like the most important thing about music. For me, I'm starting to connect with people through it, you know, and this is so beautiful.
So beautiful. That's the most amazing thing about being a musician.
Totally.
You get to hang out with other musicians.
Totally, and just them get it, you know, and them get you. I love, this is the other thing about connection, you know, I absolutely love making records. I love making bits of plastic that's got my music on it, you know. That 30 years from now, some little girl is going to be rummaging in her grandpa's collection and be like, what's this, Daddy? And pull it out and, look at it up against the light, see through, and put it on the record player and go, oh, that's horrible, that's shit, get that off. But, you know, I mean, people connect with this music for as long as there's record players, it's going to be there. See, when these bits of plastic are lying about the world, folk come across them and fall in love with them. So, in a way, even if the record doesn't do that well, like you say, if it disappears, you know, then...
Well, let's talk about the music industry.
Oh dear.
Because that plays such a huge role in all our dreams and aspirations.
Yeah. Isn't it tough? I really feel for artists, even since I've sort of broken above the bubbling cesspit. When I first released the album, there was 20,000 songs a day released to Spotify, and we were like, oh my God, 20,000 songs a day, how will we rise above, you know? And now it's 250,000 songs a day, you know, 250,000 songs a day with AI generated songs and all that sort of crap. It's so hard for artists to rise above. And it's that old thing where you say, oh, well, the cream will rise to the top eventually, you know. Well, not if there's these guys that are producing AI music and they're rich kids who can afford a bit of PR or whatever, you know. Then you just end up fighting with so much stuff that's out there. How are blogs going to listen to it all, you know? How's it going to get to tastemakers? How are labels going to find great artists anymore? How are labels even going to rise above all of this noise, you know? I don't see an immediate way out of it, but I think we've got issues.
Yeah.
And actually, vinyl records is maybe a sanctuary, you know, from all of this, because these guys who are making AI music, in my mind, they're very unlikely to press it onto a 12-inch, you know? So maybe we're going to split away from the digital, is going to split even further from the physical mediums, you know, and we're going to have our own wee club.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I actually think that's a pretty good theory. It certainly sort of starts to give you a chance, you know, to be heard and to be loved. Have you been keeping up with a lot of the sort of... outrage in the music circles about, well, obviously digital music and how it's consumed and how we get paid?
Yeah, or not. Yeah.
Or not paid.
Yeah.
Like, do you keep up with all that and all
keep up with it, yeah.
Stress on the live, sort of live music problems in, well, everywhere? It's not just the UK. Do you keep up with all that?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's my life. It's all I do, you know. So I'm really I invest time into trying to stay ahead of it and trying to understand what's going on in the industry. The live situation's getting worse and worse as well, you know, where people are still, like a support fee in Scotland is 50 quid. In 1990, a support fee in Scotland was 50 quid. You know, it's like...
not changed at all.
It's not changed, but ticket prices instead of being a fiver are now 25, you know. So that's a problem, of course, getting out of the UK now because of Brexit. Getting over to Europe is an absolute nightmare for bands. Even
because of the travel expenses have tripled, right?
Yep. Travel expenses tripled, visas everywhere, you know, a different visa for every country in some situations, you know, carnies, all of that sort of stuff, you know. It just all becomes a bit of a logistical nightmare. And going to America's a no-no. Like, even big bands are going to America and losing money. I did it and came back with a healthy wad, you know, but I was one person. So this is why I'm doing a lot more solo gigs at the moment and duo gigs, because it's just quite impossible to pay a band fairly.
And crew.
You know, and crew, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's very difficult. Are you involved in any sort of action or anything like that?
I'm an ambassador for the FAC.
Oh, wow.
So I get involved in campaigns with them.
Right.
And I'm also an ambassador with Attitude is Everything, which is a sort of campaign group to do with accessibility at venues for people with disabilities and people with hidden disabilities like mine, you know, as well. So that's what I kind of
Incredible.
add what I can to those guys.
Because how do you think we can consolidate artists, you know, British artists, Scottish artists? How do we get us all on the same page where we can exert pressure?
It's a massive problem, isn't it? I think the Musicians Union, what a great organisation, right? However, it's a bit of a joke, really, because, right, so they'll set a minimum. This is what everyone should be getting paid. Nobody works for less. Everyone works for less, you know. Of
course.
So it's kind of meaningless in a way. And I pay my dues and I do what I do with the musicians, trying to help them out where I can. But really, it's like we need everyone to come together and just say, right, now, we're actually not working for less than what it costs us, number one, okay? And just set, I mean, the Musicians Union fees, they're not even generous, because people forget a musician isn't just the hours at the venue. It's all the preparation, it's fucking writing the songs, you know, recording it, practicing it for years. There's so much that goes into it.
To travel alone in a bloody transit van from Edinburgh to London.
We're doing it next week, you know. It's extortionate, so we're not going to make any money on that. We're doing a big London show, and it's not,
No, we're in exactly the same position.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I mean, we just played Europe in the summertime, culminating in a show at Wembley Arena, which we thought was like, hey, this is great.
Yeah.
And we broke even. Wow. I mean, it's unbelievable. I won't name names, but a really good friend of ours went and played all over Europe with his super successful, beloved, iconic rock bands, and didn't make any money. Didn't make any money.
Oh my goodness.
And they're now in debt.
Oh,
you know,
my goodness,
I mean,
that's
it's
terrible.
really distressing. So I'm sorry to bring the tone of this interview down,
Not at all.
but
It's important.
yeah.
You know, like this, it's important. I think people don't quite people understand how awful it is, you know, how really, really hard it is. I'm at the stage now where I'm probably having to give up my studio, because even though I've had these 2 records, the Scottish Album of the Year, shortlisted, multiple Best Albums of the Year lists, all that, sold loads of copies in terms of what size the band we are, and yet I can't make a living. You know, my bills are more than what's coming in. And
have you caught any of the Lily Allen and Kate Nash story about selling photographs?
Yes.
In Lily's case, it's of her feet.
Yeah.
In Kate's, it's her arse.
That's right, yeah.
On their OnlyFans.
So you're suggesting that might be a route for me?
I think you should definitely be selling photographs of your cock. Why not?
Well, I mean, that's
a sensible move, is it not?
I thought we would maybe start at the feet.
That's already taken. Lily's already done that.
So I've got to
Kate's
go extreme.
done the arse.
I've got to go extreme.
I think you've got to do the only thing that's going to bring the money in.
All right, okay. I'll sit.
It's just something to think about.
You and Billy need to help me, though. Right.
I'll leave that to Billy.
Okay.
He can take the photographs of your cock. I don't particularly want to do that.
Thank you.
Yes, nothing personal. It's just not really in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But
when I was eating my breakfast this morning, I wasn't thinking this was where it was going to go.
Yeah, well, there you go. You did invite Shirley Manson to your podcast. But, you know, like, in all seriousness, you know, again, like, you know, I made a joke about your cock, but, you know, I'm sure there's another female artist putting photographs up on OnlyFans with her tits. Now, I actually think it's kind of punk rock. I agree with Kate Nash. Like, it is punk, and why not? But at the same time, the idea that artists are being driven to do stuff like that in order to keep doing what it is that they really love, I think is really not right.
It's really sad. When I read it, I get her, you know, she's a powerful person and everything like that, and she's making her own decisions. But, you know,
I don't think it's sad. I'm going to interrupt you and just say I don't think it's sad from a personal standpoint. I think it's tragic from an industry standpoint.
Tragic's what I mean from an industry standpoint. You know, this is what I mean. I think that if people have to do that, you know, does she have to do it, or is she just enjoying making a bit of extra money? It's like, I want to dig into it a bit.
I don't think she's enjoying trying to make extra money. I think she's doing it to make extra money so she can pay for a tour bus, so she can actually travel from gig to gig in comfort. Like, I applaud her. Like, I am not judging Kate or Lily for her feat either. Yeah. I think they're being smart, and they've figured out this, they can make money, and why not?
Well, do you know what? It beats sitting making funding applications all day
indeed,
for months and months and months.
Indeed,
which is my job pretty much. I think my music's about 5% of my role at the moment. The rest of it's paperwork. You know?
Well, I'm going to bring this conversation. I know that we've probably run out of time, but I want to ask you this.
Okay.
Who are your touchstones, musical touchstones? Let's talk about something lovely to end this conversation.
Okay. Well, I know that I grew up with the Beatles in the house, right? Because my mum is a massive Beatles fan, totally, right? The Blue Album especially, of course, you know, like that's... So whenever I hear that, although I don't remember the childhood moments, I feel them, right?
Yeah.
I totally feel them. It's there, they are stuck in the music. But as older, the first album I really remember like being, oh my God, I need to listen to music, was Neil Young's After the Gold Rush.
Heavenly.
So, do you remember you used to be able to hire CDs and tapes from the library?
Yeah.
Right? So my dad had been at the library and he was in his office working away, and I was walking down the stairs in our house, and that piano, you know, that piano that comes in and Don't Let It Bring You Down, that came out of his office, and I just sat down on the stairs and I listened to the whole of rest of the album from that point on, just sitting on the stairs there, absolutely amazed by it. And that just started a lifelong Neil Young sort of thing, right? So I've got Neil Young thing. Then I found James Taylor, right?
Oh, wow.
And I just think James Taylor's way of playing the guitar is just so utterly beautiful. I just love the way he plays the guitar. So if you look at all my songs, actually, the way I play the guitar, it's all basically James Taylor's guitar that I'm doing.
Incredible.
And then my number one band in the world, who I think can do no wrong, absolutely in love with, is Talk.
Oh, of course. Oh, my God.
I just think Spirit of Eden's my favourite album I've ever made. And I just think it is just genius. I think he was a genius.
He was a genius.
He was a beautiful soul. He was a gentleman and a real, like, honourable person, you know, absolutely. And see, when he knew enough had come out, he just knew enough was enough. You know? And I think that's just, he ended everything with his solo album, which for me is just utterly, utterly beautiful. So that's brilliant. What about you? You've got to tell me about yours.
Well, I was a Beatles girl too. Like, when I was really young, I was madly in love with the Beatles, actually.
Yeah.
And what better foundation really to start learning from. But then I went through a very difficult puberty and became indignant. I became an indignant child, and I fell in love with all the troublemakers. So I was obsessed with Susie and the Banshees. I mean, I'm still obsessed with Susie and the Banshees, Patti Smith, Stevie Nicks, and I was obsessed by all these, like Marianne Faithfull, but I also had this massive love affair with Nina Simone, Billie Holiday, Peggy Lee, Julie London, like all these old jazz singers that my mum introduced me to.
Okay, cool.
Which made me want to ask, where is the music from in your family? Because in my case, it was my mother, who was a singer.
Okay.
Where does it come from in your family, if at all?
It's from my mother as well, from my mum. My wee mummy. Yeah.
Was your wee mummy an artist or a singer? Or
she should have been a musician. Oh, no, that's terrible, right? Because she totally is a musician.
Right,
She plays in an
go.
orchestra.
Okay, she's a musician.
She's a musician, but her job was a nurse. So she was always a nurse, right?
Incredible.
And she's always a musician in the background. She's now in a mandolin orchestra.
Incredible.
Scotland's mandolin orchestra or something like that. She's totally mental. And she plays the guitar as well. And she'd play the guitar and sing to me Golden Slumbers.
Oh my God.
And
Devastating.
Totally. And
Have you got her playing on your record?
No, Isla's on it. Isla's singing on them.
Oh,
My
how
daughter,
lovely.
my eldest daughter. But no, my mum isn't playing on it for some
Got to
reason.
get your
I don't
mum
know
in
why.
there next record.
I should.
That's a must.
Yeah, some mandolin.
Yeah.
I know. It's funny. My sister was in some orchestra as well, played clarinet. So there is music in
a
there.
lot of
A lot
music.
of music going on in the house.
So you come from a musical family.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
And your mum was a singer?
She was a singer, amateur singer in inverted commas.
Right.
Yeah, she was an amazing singer, but my mum was a really joyful person and made the intersection for me between music and joy, which is such a great gift, because I don't associate it with anything other than joy, freedom and joy, which was a profound gift to leave your child, I think.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm not a particularly ambitious person. I'm certainly not the most gifted musician. I'm not the best singer. I'm not the best at anything. And I've been really blessed with, well, I don't care. It's fine. This makes me happy and I'm good at it. And that's enough. There's an amazing quote that I read in a paper a long time ago now by Pablo Casals, the incredible cellist, world famous cellist. And he was 98 years old and he was being interviewed, and they said, you know, Pablo, rumour has it that you practice every single day. You're 98, you're one of the greatest players of all time. Why do you still feel the need to practice? And he said, because I still believe I've got something to learn. Wow. And I just thought, what a great concept, you know. Because I think it's so tedious when people who are very successful at things, anything, it doesn't matter what, who become arrogant that somehow they know all the answers. You know, they just put a sort of like a full stop at the end of their achievement, and somehow think that you get to the top of a mountain and there you go, you have all the spoils of the kingdom. And instead, I think as an artist, it's so dangerous to get like that, to get in that headspace of like, yeah, I'm an expert at this, or I know everything about this. I think it's so hideous. I hate it when I meet people who are like that.
Totally.
You know, I want people who are always questioning, always doubting, always wanting more, getting better, learning, you know. So
how do you maintain humility?
I have no humility whatsoever. No, I'm really lucky. I feel like I've had a glorious career and I'm in a really lovely place, you know, of just investigation. Okay. And I think that's one of the greatest things you are gifted as an artist. It's just this idea of like, oh, it's infinite. Yeah. The exploration is infinite. And I didn't have that at the beginning of my career. I had like weird ideas about myself and about my band and about our music. And I was in a weird cage that made me really unhappy. I've freed myself of all that. And I don't know quite how I did it. I think growing up in Scotland has been one of the greatest gifts. I mean, I know we all say that about where we hail from, but there's something unique that coming from Scotland that I've learned, because I've travelled extensively. I mean, I've been almost everywhere. And, you know, you get to visit all these different cultures, whether it's India or Bhutan or America or Iceland, or, you know, and you see how all these other countries function. And what is glorious about little countries, you know, which I always thought of myself as having it was not good for my career that I came from somewhere so small, you know, where we didn't really have a burgeoning music scene. We didn't have, I mean, there was one famous Scottish actor when I was growing up, which was, you know, Sean Connery. There was nobody else. We didn't have an art scene. We had no cinematic history, nothing. And I always thought, oh, that's not good. That's not good for me. But weirdly, as I've gotten older, I've realised that when you grow up in a small culture like Scotland, it's essentially it's an island, a tiny island in the midst of this morass of humanity. And, you know, it is something very precious about coming from somewhere small that gives you a really forged idea of identity. And I've noticed a lot of my friends in America don't have that, and they're envious of it because you know, and there's something about feeling very sure that you belong somewhere that I don't think a lot of the bigger countries that have so much power and influence have, you know, and that's something really precious, I think. And I think it's why I'm so attracted to Scottish artists. And it's still really important to me to watch the Scottish music scene, and there's something different there that isn't anywhere else, and that's really precious, you know.
It's beautiful.
You're beautiful.
Well, Shirley, I think that's a really lovely place to end it. So, so I just want to say It's been so lovely having a conversation with you like this. You know, we spoke over email, we spoke on the internet, but being face to face and having a proper chat, there's nothing better, is there?
No, I knew I was going to love you, though. I wouldn't have agreed to this if I didn't know. I've got a really good sense about people, and I knew that I would love you. And I just hope that you continue to bloom and grow. And I shall look forward to watching that as you continue through your career. You're still a young man, and it's exciting.
Goodness me.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Shirley. Cheers.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Talkhouse Podcast, and thanks to Shirley Manson and Stephen McAll for chatting. If you liked what you heard, check out all the great stuff at talkhouse.com and on the Talkhouse Podcast Network. This episode was produced by Myron Kaplan, and the Talkhouse theme was composed and performed by The Range. See you next time.